In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Eric.
And I'm James.
And today we are looking at A Few Good Men.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. A few and a very amongst the very few good movies.
Yes.
Directed by Rob Reiner, which probably makes sense if you're listening to this around the time it releases. Also written by Aaron Sorkin, starring a bunch of baby faces, including Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, Jack Nicholson, Kevin Pollak, and Kiefer Sutherland.
Yes, and A Few Good Men is a legal drama about Navy JAG officer Lieutenant Daniel Coffey, played by Tom Cruise, defending two Marines accused of murdering a fellow Marine at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. In the process, they uncover a high-level cover-up involving illegal Code Red, hazing orders from Superior Colonel Nathan Jessup. That's Jack Nicholson. Initially seeking a plea bargain, Coffey is pushed by fellow lawyer Lieutenant Commander Joanne Galloway, Demi Moore, to pursue the case. They build a case around the limits of military honor, culminating in the iconic courtroom confrontation where Jessup admits to ordering the Code Red, implicating the military's code of honor itself.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. Can we handle this episode? That's what I want to know.
I don't know if I can, man. I don't know.
All right, so going on to our popcorn ratings, and even though this is a 30-year-old movie, we will stick with our spoiler-free, although probably pretty brief parts about it, is what are our ratings? Are we going with stale, fresh, buttered, and salted? I'll go first. This is buttered and salted. This is the type of movie, honestly, after you watch it, you're like, do I want to be a Marine or do I want to be a lawyer? Oh wait, I can be both. Yeah, it's probably one of the best pieces of, and I say this with love, probably one of the best pieces of propaganda that has ever come out of Hollywood for the law field and for the Marine Corps. It's pretty awesome.
Wow.
How about yourself, James?
That's some high praise. Well,
Yes.
that's an interesting take too, because some would say it actually is critiquing in a way that maybe it probably depends on where you're at in our country thinking about these things. Somebody could see it as a recruiting video, and others could see it as, I can't believe they're showing the military in such a light. That's kind of sad. I hadn't even thought about that, but I would have to go buttered and salted for different reasons. Even I think this was. A movie came out in 1992. I was working one of my first real jobs as a college kid, working in a one-screen movie theater, and so you would get everything going, and the movie be going. There wasn't much else to do unless somebody came out for concessions. So I probably saw this film, at least in major portions of it, probably 15 to 50 times, depending.
Wow.
As it ran for a few weeks at this theater. And so I fell in love with it then. Honestly, though, I watched it so many times at the time that I'm not sure I've revisited it in 30 years. So This was really fun to come back. So I'm wondering, how's it going to stack up? I have this big nostalgia memory. And no, it's still buttered and salted. And now even seeing it through a slightly different cinematic lens, even just the opening sequence where the I think they are presenting the precision of the military performance during the credits. There's something elegant about that. And so even the cinematography and some of the choices, the long shots or long takes like that, where it's an Aaron Sorkin story, so there is a lot of talking, but there's also room to breathe.
Yes.
And a lot of moments just framing what you're about to see. It's still really well done. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you get the dialogue out really, 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 really quickly, you have time to do this to do the slow panning shots and really set the mood. It's like I saw something about Sorkin today. So apparently the the script for The Social Network, which he wrote, was like 166 pages or something like that, which would mean it'd be a 2 hour, 40-minute movie. Well, because of how he paces his scripts and how quickly everyone's supposed to talk and say, there's a lot of dialogue, but that movie is exactly 2 hours. And
That's
this
right.
movie is very much like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. There's a lot of talking, but it's fast, it's quick, but it's meaningful. And I think that's it's not just the jibber jabber that a lot of lesser writers, I will say, put into their films that stretch the time. He's like, no, he uses everything. So let's move on to the theology side. Are we going with diluted, carbonated, or cup runneth over?
Well, I'm going to give it a carbonated for the simple fact that it's very, very focused. I think it's the kind of story that has one specific point to tell. It's all moving toward that final scene.
Yeah.
And yet, watching it again after all these years, I think what could make it almost cup runneth over is you could spend a lot of time talking about each of many of the characters, even though they're all centered on that focal issue. I say you can almost say it's runneth over just in the sheer amount of time. This because I'll bet we probably won't have time to talk about everything that we could trail down. But I'm going to go carbonated just because it's right. It's balancing that center really well.
Yeah. No, I'm going with carbonated as well. It definitely has some deep things to talk about, or at least start the conversation with, particularly around the limits of following orders and the decisions around those who put people on the wall, why you keep people on the wall, who gets to be on the wall, and then the unpleasantness of, well, we put people on the wall and we don't really want to talk about it. We want that, for spoiler for people, the speech. I actually think Jessup is right. I actually can't find almost any fault in his actual speech itself, except when we get to my actual point, I will find the fault in it. But I think it is one of those very interesting things where I could very much the last year or so, I've had the privilege of working with some different Marines and just finding out how they think about stuff and just talking through some issues. And I could very well, I've met a lot of Marines that feel the same way about Jessup, but maybe don't have the character flaw that he did with it. So I think that's going to be probably the big difference is where I will break with Jessup at the end with that. But with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our little promotional side. We want everyone to encourage you to share this episode with your friends. Let's go ahead and just broaden that conversation. Go ahead, subscribe on YouTube, hit us likes, do all that fun stuff on social medias. If you want to get some free swag or some stickers, go ahead, 5-star rate review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, and then reach out to us on either Patreon or through the email to let us know, and we'll send you some free stuff. Speaking of Patreon, just donate a few dollars a month gets you become a patron saint, lets you engage deeper in the conversations. We do monthly Patreon pick movies, as well as we have public Discord server. We have premium seating. Members, you get special in the lobby episodes, early release episodes. As a matter of fact, David just did an entire marathon where he did all 8 Harry Potter films, all 8 in one go, and he's going to be releasing those throughout the year. But all the premium seating members, you get them all at the same time. You don't have to wait a whole year to get all 8 episodes. So that's a huge benefit right there. And then if anyone wants to buy any swag or merch, my wife got me this nice hoodie for Christmas. She's supporting the podcast. I've got the beach towel behind me. Got some ball caps. A lot of cool stuff that we have to offer for everyone with that. So we'll go ahead and drop our ad, and then we'll get back to discussing A Few Good Men.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane!
Cinemagogue, The Marvelous Era. James Harleman here, the cinema guy, announcing the sequel to my first book on film and faith. Let's face it, entertainment has changed dramatically since the first book published in 2012, and comic book characters and franchises are everywhere. So I decided to set my sights on superheroes and examine the evolution of Hollywood in this follow-up to the first Cinemagogue book. For example, what does Loki tell us about culture's view of God? Why does the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Saga continually align with biblical themes? In the Marvelous era, I review each film and show not only how the individual movies express gospel parallels, but each phase essentially reveals a multi-point sermon. I also explore DC, Star Wars, the Monsterverse, and more. Without compromising scriptural truth, we can sift these stories and discover how we might reject, receive, and redeem ideas for personal reflection and Christian conversation. Also, has Hollywood's messaging gotten worse? The book explores ways these marvelous mythologies correspond with conversion, Christian living, church history, and Reformation, but I do also highlight what has been the entertainment industry's darker, indoctrinating decade, as well as toxic fandom and the dangers of immersion in pop culture that just might drown us spiritually if we're not careful. So suit up, assemble, and join me on a journey to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Cinemagogue, the Marvel Us Era. Now available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle editions.
And we're back, dropping the spoiler warning as we dig deeper into A Few Good Men. All right, and there it is. It's time for our deeper, spoiler-filled popcorn thoughts. So, James, you thought it was buttered and salted. You already know a little bit why you feel that way. But why don't you go ahead and give us a little, some more details on why you're feeling the way you're feeling?
Oh, well, as I was saying, I think that it was a beautiful mix of Sorkin's crazy dialogue, but also just spaces to breathe. Like there's that moment in the courtroom scene where they take, I mean, it feels like 30 seconds as he just looks around at different persons and what they would want him to do, and some people saying, yeah, I think it's like Weinberg's kind of like, you could tell he's don't do it with just a subtle head nod. Mm-hmm. Not really sure what Galloway's thinking. I think she wants him to go for it, but doesn't want to tell him to do it. And you can just tell everybody in the room, and he's sitting there thinking, and that just, it hangs so long. I'm not even sure you could get that, make it through the edits for like a Netflix show.
No,
like, never happened.
Never.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I also really appreciated the relationship between Kathy and Galloway, just because, I mean, you had they sort of go on a date, but it doesn't have to have, over the course of that one span of time, it doesn't have to blossom into this full relationship. There's no sex. It's like, oh, okay. It feels much more like a slice of life, getting to know each other type of thing that could go somewhere. So it felt more real. And I also just thinking about watching the 90s movie. Okay, one thing I probably didn't like, it was a little cringe where I think she's talking to him and he's like, I'm very aroused by that. I can't see anybody saying that. Like nobody today would be like, well, that was a good comeback.
Well, that was in that was in his slacker phase of everything. It was before he started to become a real lawyer with it all.
Yeah. But I did appreciate how they dealt in what felt like to me more of an adult manner with male female dynamics in the film. Like there's that point where Jack Nicholson, where Jessup just horribly kind of just starts getting crass right in front of her. But there wasn't any preaching moment about it's hard to be a woman in it was a very show don't tell story where yes, of course there's relationship dynamics. You've got mixed genders in the military here, and all these situations, but it never felt like preaching. It felt just like things you might experience with different personalities in real life, and you appropriately transmitted when you should be uncomfortable and when you should not appreciate someone's behavior.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things I was kind of, when they went on the date, I was like, really? After Jack Nicholson's character just gave that speech, they're going to have them get together and hook up? I was like, it seemed like that seems weird. Like, why would you make that storytelling choice? And I'm glad they didn't. Matter of fact, it was both Reiner and Sorkin pushed back against that idea of them being in a relationship. Legend says that one of the producers said, "Well, how come? what's her point? Why did you make her a female if they're not going to get together? And Sorkin was kind of taken aback, like women are good for more than sex. And so yeah, but I was kind of surprised. It was a happy surprise that they didn't, but I was still surprised that they kind of went on that date to begin with. Because I thought they were going to go that direction. I was like, really? After Jessup's speech, they're really going to have it go this direction? Okay.
Well, it felt like there were a lot of things that just sort of cut down the middle. Instead of the usual trope you might expect to sort of swing one way or the other. I felt like there were many aspects of the film, and even just character dynamics, characters, relationships. Captain Jack, Kevin Bacon's character.
Oh yeah.
He's not villain or hero. He's not friend or they're people in these situations. Like there's more nuance to the characters than I think a lot of films that we get then and now, not just critiquing movies nowadays. But I think the one thing that probably stood out to me most watching it this time, I think I was in my slacker phase back in so I was loving Tom Cruise's character with McAfee. This time I was actually really fascinated with Dawson.
Okay, yeah.
Just watching him and his fortitude to stand up and not take the plea deal, and just some other things which plays into theological stuff we'll talk about later. But I was impressed with his performance. He's not an actor that went on to do a whole lot. He only had so much to work with in the script, but then their dynamic, and then of course the salute at the end, and his even understanding of the price he had to pay. So it was just well played in a lot of ways. Even his character and those two guys at the end, right? There's no complete victory.
Yeah.
Like everything in this story has some shades of gray and nuance, or not really shades of gray, just the light shines on the fact that everybody's gray.
Yeah.
To varying degrees of compromise. So, but more on that later. What about you, man?
Yes, for me, obviously, it was butter and salted. I said earlier. The dialogue, super quick. Obviously, you become part of Sorkin's hallmark touch. I didn't know this until researching for this. This was Sorkin's first feature film. He wrote this for a play based off of a real-life incident that also took place that had to do with a code red, that had to do with a no murder, but it was it was a code red. It was down in Gitmo. And I think it was his sister was part of the JAG unit that did the prosecuting. So like he had a little bit of this information. So he originally did it for a stage play, and the stage play has been produced and has been made. And then this became his first feature film, which is just incredible. That a guy who's written so many iconic things over the years, so many iconic movies, that this was his first shot. It's like, wow. Wow.
Pretty good out of the gate.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, the character elements, and you could go through each character and dive super deep into each character, but they're like real human beings with actual like human characteristics and instincts. It's character elements really well done. Cruise's character was honestly like, he was only in the Navy because his father had been a famous JAG. That's the only reason why he was in the Navy. He had already graduated Harvard Law. He's already passed the bar. Had already done all that. He'd been in the Navy for less than a year. And I would say it's kind of one of the interesting things where it's like some of the synopsis, it was like, oh, a slacker. And it wasn't so much that he was a slacker, is he just didn't care about all the military culture because he wasn't planning on being there. He was there because he wanted to make his dead dad proud, essentially. He wanted to carry on the family legacy. It's a good story, right? Famous dad, son joins the military, becomes an officer, does all that. Like, it's a great story. Yeah. That's why he was there. But if you look at it, his claim to fame was the fact that he got so many plea bargains and nothing went to trial. And that's where you start to see the story of like, oh, that's why the Navy chose him to take on this case. They never wanted it to go to trial.
Yeah.
They never wanted, and he recognized that. He pointed that out himself. He learned to be one of my favorite scenes I noticed. So obviously we had the baseball scene where he's talking with the guy here, and he's like, I'm going to do this injunction and this injunction, and there's going to be so much. You're going to need glasses, by the end of it. and then he's sitting in the bar deciding what he wants to do, whether he wants to pursue the case and go to trial, and then he hears another lawyer in the bar talking about the exact same thing. I was like, oh, that's when he decided to start becoming an actual lawyer and start doing the investigations, or decided to go to trial, I should say, not doing the investigation. Because again, like, and then the next character, the other side of the coin with Jessup, or the other side of the military, I will say, is the Corps was happy to let Jessup just continue to run Gitmo how he was. Like, they knew he was doing code reds, they knew he was doing all these stuff, but they kind of understood the kind of give and take there about, like, oh, he's on the wall. That's why they gave this case to a green and lazy lawyer like Coffee. They were like, well, he gets good plea bargains. Yeah, we're going to hang these 2 young Marines out to dry, but, for the good of the Corps, right? We don't have any actual dialogue that says any of that, but we all know from implications that that's what the top brass was actually thinking. That's why Costner's character was so willing to give him the 12 years with no pushback. Even Cruz is like, hey, I was expecting a little bit more pushback. But once Jessup openly admitted in court, something actually had to be done about it, because at the end of the day, and this will be part of my main theme when I get to the theology side, is the military is actually governed ultimately by civilians, not by the military itself. And so because of that, once it got out that Jessup was breaking the chain of command, civilians don't like that, and so they don't like seeing that stuff. But the speech, I will say, the speech about "you need me on that wall," it reminds me so much of, from Sicario, the "you are now in a land of wolves" speech that Benicio del Toro gives to Emily Blunt's character, and also reminds me very heavily of the operative speech in Serenity. And all 3 of these speeches are given by men who know that they're not going to get to live in the world that they're protecting or that they're trying to build. They know that. The operative outright says it. Sicario and this one is kind of implicit to the whole thing, that these are not men who are welcomed in polite society. They're not the ones who are going to get to go to the dinners, but they're the ones you need on the wall. They're the ones that will do the things, they do the ugly things that keep the world actually running. And this film, honestly, like, Jessup, he'd grown bitter about his place in the world, and he came to just resent the very people that he was actually supposed to protect while he was on the wall. And that, at the end of the day, is how Coffee is actually able to trap him. Because the best part is when they're talking, and now I'm not going to do it. I was going to try to do a Nicholson voice, but I'll screw it up. But when they're deciding, no, we're going to have Jessup testify, is Jessup told and this is Coffee talking. Jessup told Kendrick to order the code red. Kendrick did, and our client follows the orders. The cover-up is in our case. To win, Jessup needs to tell the court members that he ordered the code red. And they say, how are you going to get him to do that? And Coffee says, I think he wants to say it. I think he's pissed off that he's got to hide from this. I think he wants to say that he made a command decision and that's the end of it. And then he starts imitating Nicholson. He's breakfast 300 yards away from 4,000 Cubans that are trained to kill him. And nobody's going to tell him to run his unit, at least of all the Harvard mouth with his faggoty white uniform. I need to shake him, put him in the defensive, and lead him right where he's dying to go. And I think that, at the end of the day, was the brilliance of this script, and why I think it stuck with so many people, why it stuck with me, as even though I finished watching it for the first time ever yesterday, but why it's still rattling around the brain is just because of the masterclass of storytelling and getting us to believe that Jessup's right, but he did everything in a wrong way, and so he needs to be punished for doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
But with that, I guess we'll talk a little bit about Rob Reiner at this point. I guess, unless you've got some more thoughts on the movie itself.
Well, no, I think you mentioned all the good performances, and even the little performances. I was shocked. We mentioned baby-faced folks earlier, but
yes,
Noah Wiley's in this. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in this. Xander Berkeley.
One scene.
So many different faces that went on to other things.
Yeah.
It's just there, and every character felt like they had a vested moral stake and a different moral place that they were standing, and that's where I think it could almost become Cup Runneth Over in the next section, because you could almost go through the list of the entire cast and okay, where were they at, and where did they pivot? We could look at a few, but just a brilliant collaboration then between Sorkin and Reiner, and yeah, I mean, obviously we picked this episode. I just did The Princess Bride as a film and theology event in my church. Rob Reiner's passing kind of brought all of us to look back at his body of work, and even I, living through it, didn't quite realize the diversity that he had.
Yeah. It so from 1982 to 1992, so almost a decade, not quite a decade. He was peak filmmaking. He did This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. Like, these are some of the most iconic movies ever made. Some of the most iconic performances from some of the greatest actors who have ever lived. He was the one directed them.
And no repeats. No repeats, man. You look at the genre styles of each of them. Yeah. And you're just like...
Satire, coming of age, fantasy, romance, horror, courtroom drama.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Bam, bam, bam. He's like, I'm just going to do it all. As like, these are films that film schools teach, or at least they used to anyway, because apparently no one makes films like this that much anymore. At all, honestly. Almost no one's making stuff like this. Yeah. It's hard to think of anyone who had a better streak than this. And it truly was a generational talent. Now, I would say, I don't know what happened after 92 with A Few Good Men, because he went into, like, if you just go on IMDb, he doesn't have anything that rates over a 7 rating. I know that's not the end all be all and stuff, and I haven't seen all those movies, but just from a general standpoint, he doesn't have anything that rates over a 7 until I think like 2007 with The Bucket List. And so so I have no idea what happened after A Few Good Men that made his quality and stuff to go down, but still, it was for almost a decade. Rob Reiner was in the zone. Like, there was almost no one better than him at the time.
Yeah, well, it's like the mid-70s to mid-70s run that Spielberg goes on. We should probably be talking about Rob Reiner in much the same voice as at least the first decade of Spielberg's work, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll go ahead and start to dig deeper into our theology section. And so, James, why don't you go ahead and get us started, sir?
Well, I think watching it this time, what really stood out to me was sometimes something that I think Christians can kind of ignore, especially, if you scratch the surface of kind of Christian bookstore culture and some of the more shallow end of the pool, Christian living, and a lot of things, or even Christian music. There can be a lot of basic ideas that, the truth is black and white, everything's very simple, and, I obviously do believe that truth ultimately is black and white. But the complexity of living that out in this life, the complexity of morality and even the complexity of our scriptures, and the need for wisdom as you walk through our code book, as it were. It's kind of fascinating how Christians don't really stop to think about all the complexity of what it looks like to walk through situations. I'll get to some verses on that in a second, but I'd love then how the movie positions different characters to give us multiple points of view, right? You've got Caffey, and it's not just that he's sort of phoning it in because he's doing his time there. I think he kind of he's a guy who's looking to how to make the best deal for someone, and get the win. I mean, when he talks about like, I can get you 6 months, like he really thinks he's doing. At that point, I think he does believe, even though he wants the win for his own glory, he also thinks he's like, no, I'm really doing this is the best anybody could do for you. I'm actually trying to help you, because he doesn't understand the virtue of standing for truth at that point. He's not interested in that. But he does have some virtue in that. Is like, I've met some lawyers who are like that, right? It's like, my job is to get the best deal I can for them. I was like, well, that's not necessarily untrue, but it doesn't necessarily correspond with a biblical view I mean, many times. And then you have Weinberg's view, like he joins the team but doesn't respect. He's like, they're guilty, they're just bullies. I almost felt like you could see he's got something. There's a story we don't get from him.
Yeah.
Like, why is he such a hater of bullies? They pick on the little guy. What's his past? I like that the movie doesn't give us an ad nauseum backstory for everybody, but you kind of get this idea. Oh yeah, people are complicated. They've got their own story, their own history. That's going to shade, even though again Weinberg's not wrong, right? These two did do this, even though they're following orders, and the story plays out. They're held accountable for following through on this order that ultimately they shouldn't have. They should have chosen to reject.
Yeah.
And Demi Moore, I think she represents somebody who's morality but lacking some wisdom, right? When she strenuously objects.
Oh, is that how it works? I object. Overruled. No. I strenuously object. Oh, well, let me reconsider that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I so loved that the movie didn't make it. Well, I'm a female lawyer in a man's world, and say, like, no, she actually felt like in many ways on that team she was the most sort of straight through virtue for virtue's sake. But sometimes you can have somebody who absolutely knows the truth but lacks the wisdom in how to actually implement it and have it play out in the real world. Again, I mentioned Kevin Bacon's character. I think that he honestly wanted the best and had respect for the chain of command. And in fact, then when there's proof at the end, right, he starts reading him his rights. Like, oh no, we've got this. Now we can go. He respects the chain of command, and so he's not willing to violate it until that certain point when there's break in the problem. And Dawson, again, it's like Dawson and Galloway seem like the most virtuous in some ways in the film. And Dawson there, again, we just had on Sunday, we hit Daniel 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it almost did feel a little bit, Tom Cruise almost feels a little devil-like when he's tempting them to take the deal. It's just like, if you'll just bow down to this plea deal, well, we could get you out of here, 6 months, whatever, you'll be home, etc., etc. And he's like, no, that's not justice. That's not truth. That would be lying about what we did. That would be participating in a lie. I cannot do that. And there are times where it's like, you're going to get burned. I mean, it's not a fiery furnace like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It's like you're going to jail for the rest of their lives, or like, so this is going to be horrible.
Yeah.
If you stand up, if you put your foot down here, this could be it. And Dawson's like, this is the way it has to go. Like, I can't go a different way. They
were thoroughly, and again, saying this with love, they were thoroughly indoctrinated of that unit core God country, and they the Loudon when he was like, I don't understand, we followed orders, like he literally like couldn't understand why this was such a big deal, like why is everyone, he admitted to that he gave the order and we carried out the order. I don't understand like how do we have conduct unbecoming of a Marine if we followed orders? Yeah, and it's that's what I think love what Dawson said, and I've talked with some of my Marine Corps buddies over the last couple of years, and check out our In the Lobby episode with Rich Brown and Keith Lindy, and we talk about their experiences as Marines, and one of the things that they joke about and say, your Marine will never say "wilco," which means will comply, because if it's a lawful order, they will comply. So they don't need to say it. It's redundant in the mind of a Marine. And I think that's what Dawson at the end recognizes then when he says it to Loudon is like, no, we should have been sticking up for the little guy. We should have been sticking up for those who were weaker than us instead of beating down on them. Well,
technically, I was going to say the chain of command was broken above them.
Yes. Yeah.
And by Jessup himself.
Yes.
And trickling down, so they should have opposed it because ultimately it's you respect the whole chain, not just
the whole chain, not just the immediate.
If the link above you breaks it, then something is incumbent upon you. And it just made me start thinking running the military is a lot like running the church because we have our own code book.
Yeah.
Right. And McAfee, watching it through that lens, and I think the movie has sort of a love-hate relationship with the military.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
The way Reiner films it, there is some respect for the discipline, the unity, the lockstep. Like he artfully captures it at the beginning, and he shows some corruption in it. But of course, the people who are fighting for the truth are in the military too, different division, right? So there's sort of this. There's exposure that it can be horribly misused, abused. Codes can be brought in that aren't technically in the book. That sounds a little like the church, right? In fact, that's usually when the church runs afoul of problems, right? But even just taking our code book, right? There's a wisdom that is necessary in running a church. You just think about a simple thing like Proverbs 26:4 and 5, where it says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly." The next verse, "Answer a fool according to his folly." Right? So you're like, well, wait, what does that mean? Or you look at Matthew 18, and there's a way to deal with conflict and sin, or somebody who needs discipline, as somebody who needs to be taken to church version of court, right? That's bring them before the church. And then we also have places like Titus, where it says, warn someone once, twice, then have nothing more to do with them. Well, but what about repentance? What about forgiveness? What about reconciliation? Like actually putting together all the nuance of situationally living out the Christian life is a pretty intense code book. And then you've got, in churches, lots of people trying to bring in their own version of code reds.
Yep.
Sometimes to be overly harsh, or maybe sometimes to be overly lenient.
Yeah.
And so we add codes or we overlook codes. And ultimately church structure, anybody who knows a little bit about my story, I stood on a church jury and got rid of 2 pastors, which was a mistake back in the history of Mars Hill Church, a pastor who then kind of Jessuped himself in some ways. And so I've been in situations where when you actually have to litigate the business of the church, where you actually have to look at church leadership, it can be a lot like that. Very easy for a pastor, just like Jessup, to get jaded and full of and feel like nobody understands, and then feel like he gets extra powers and is sort of almost outside the authority or chain himself. There's a lot of that that's playing into this.
Yeah, you don't understand what it's like to stand in the pulpit and God's staring down on top of you, and you're having to pick up the Bible and exegete God's word and in a way that's like it's easy for you down there, lowly person. And so therefore you should give me the respect and the honor and the da. But what does always Paul say? What does Paul say? If you can speak with the tongues of angels but have not love, then you're just a clanging cymbal. And we see that a lot among these Jessup-like pastors in the world that maybe they are incredibly talented. I know, talking about Mars Hill and stuff, it was never part of my jam, honestly. It was like I only found out about him literally after everything blew up. Is like I was at church one time and people were talking about, oh, did you see what happened over there? I was like, I had never even heard of this person. And so I was like, okay, whatever. But so like being late to the party, I didn't understand, but I've seen that over and over and over again, that mindset of, no, God put me in this high position and I have to be here because of this. I do this joke about politicians, and all politicians are narcissists. There's the first kind that says, only I can run your life better than you can. Like, I'm the only one that can run the world properly. And the second type is, I'm the only one that can stop the first type. And and you see that a lot with pastors. They fall into those categories of the ones that are going to be, I'm going to give you the 15 ways of life, and you're going to follow all 15 ways of life, or you are a heretic, and you need to get out of my church.
Yeah.
And then you have the other end that just overcorrect either grace side or legal side to correct against against that first type that's laying down additional codes instead of taking the commander's intent, God's commander's intent of what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, and there's McAfee's in the mix, right? There's those guys too, or they're pragmatists. They're like, well, I know Scripture says this, but I mean, we could just cut through that and kind of but we'll just sort it out this way because that makes a little more sense. Practically, it'll work out. It's like, no, sorry, man, you have to contend with some hard places where God's word says sin is sin. We can't overlook that. We have to deal with that. And so you've got McAfee's in the church. You've kind of got you could go through every character. You've got some younger or up and coming Christians. They're Galloways who they're like, oh, Scripture says this. How could you possibly have handled it this way? It's like, well, okay, wait, let's sit down. Let's actually look at full scope of Scripture.
Yep.
And there are places where you have to make a call, right? There are places in Scripture where you have to make a call. It's like Scripture says to handle people in a variety of situations based on what I have to. Where that are they repentant? Are they not? There's nuance to handling people, even within some very, very great guardrails of Scripture. There's nuance in handling certain situations, certain marriages, or even situations of divorce. Right? If there's so many things where Scripture is clear to a degree, and then God does leave us to struggle a little bit and ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom for some little tiny individual applications, or even just timing. Right? How long do we test someone before reconciliation or restoration? How long does that look like? There's a lot of those recipes that we don't have. So in one sense, we have our code book, but there are, I don't want to call them code reds, but there's areas where we have to make extra biblical calls because the plays aren't in the book.
Well, and the idea of the code red in and of itself is not a bad thing, right? It's when Kevin Bacon is cross-examining the what's his name, Noah, or the guy from ER. I'll just call him the guy from ER because that's what made him he became famous for, or the Pit now, Pit now.
No,
another baby face. When he's interrogating him, and then after Cruz gets up and goes, "How'd you find out where the mess hall was?" Well, I just kind of followed the crowd. And I was like, I thought that was perfect example of being like, there's things that, there's the book. There's the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps is famous for literally writing everything down. He's like, Jocko Willink, who I love, has gone through many, many books of the Marine Corps handbooks and stuff like that, and just explaining what it means, and it's fantastic. Love it. That's what they're famous for. They write everything down. But there's this thing where it's like the culture of the Marine Corps, though, is not found in the books. The culture in Marine Corps is caught. It's caught by being around Marines.
Yeah.
And experiencing what Marines experience. So that's why the church itself, we need code red type things. Obviously not the hazing and the beating people up. So hear what I'm saying, people. But we need those code reds where it's like, hey, that family is struggling to parent their children during church. So instead of everyone looking at them, arms crossed, and go, can't believe they don't know, like, aren't they spanking them? And I was like, well, sometimes kids know when they're not going to get spanked. Let's just put just put it honestly. Or how about, instead of just judging them, how about let's get them around some parents whose children do sit still? How about we get them around, hey, you have the zeal for apologetics, but you're in your cage phase. Let me get around you the guy who's been doing it for 10 years. And maybe he's not going to calm you down, but he's going to give you some wisdom. And I think those are the code reds where we don't take the soap and the sock and beat people the way that I've been told that people get done. But I think that peer pressure or that culture pressure is something that is lacking, honestly, in overall culture right now. It's like let's make shame great again. Honestly, with some of our cultural sins and the ways that we walk away from marriage and the way we talk about women and children and all these things. Let's bring some shame back. And the way we bring shame back is through code reds. A little bit, getting people around people who understand the culture and are able to live in the culture.
Yeah. Well, and even there's some nuance just thinking about understanding bad things happen in the church. And they're not always. It's interesting to look at the domino effect of this situation. Because to me, the first person to blame is that doctor. Yeah. It's like most likely, like this guy was getting hazed because he had a condition that was undiagnosed.
He had a medical condition. Yeah.
He wasn't a slacker anymore either. McAfee had his reasons for being McAfee. I don't think we're seeing that this guy is portrayed as a slacker. He literally can't keep up, and so a doctor misfiles a report. Now people wrongly judge him. Now then he gets a code red. If he didn't have the condition, he might have just if he had actually just been a slightly slacking guy, the code red he wouldn't have died from choking in the mouth. He might have stepped it up, right? But the domino effect actually doesn't even begin with Jessup. It begins with a doctor.
Yeah,
and it's like, man, sometimes problems when you try to litigate or solve, like what's the problem in the church here? You're like, oh, it was this random thing over here we didn't see, and it kind of seeped into our church culture, and we didn't see that cut, and now people are running with it. And I want to be upset with this guy or that guy. It's like, well, no, it precedes them, but it exacerbates all of these different things. And so there's a degree of humility and a degree of mercy that has to be applied, even in dealing with people who are clearly erring, but were they improperly taught? Has something else leaked into church culture? Has somebody kind of poisoned the well of what either kindness or discipline should look like? Are the people doing it wrong because were they the instigators, or is there a bigger problem here we need to repent of? So it's kind of complicated to see that this movie doesn't. I don't think it clearly points. Like to your point, I don't think it's clearly making. Jessup has become a reprehensible individual, but to your point, aspects of his speech are spot on.
Oh yeah,
and so I love how again we just circle back it was just the complexity of morality and maybe just litigating or figuring out where we are supposed to stand as Christians. It isn't as it's very easy for a new Christian to just be, I just do what the good book says. Have you lived for more than a few years as a Christian? Because relationally, dynamically, and even just with 66 books of replete with biblical truth, wisdom, calls for obedience, it's complicated. And we have to admit that and walk humbly ourselves, and make sure we deal with problems, but don't always just assume. There are so many different assumptions in this movie about different characters, and they're just the reality winds up being not quite where anybody thought it was. So I thought it was that's what makes it kind of a great discussion to sort of overlay on a template of multitude of spiritual relational situations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, this is a great conversation, man. It was, it is one of those where you can go each character by character and just talk about some different failings or shortcomings or even things to admire and look through. But obviously the big one that everyone always talks about, the scene
that's right,
that has made this movie famous is, I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. And at the end of the day, it's true. We can't handle the truth. We do need men on the wall willing to do the hard things.
Yep.
In the end, the truth is that Jessup was right. And I'll just read the speech because it's an incredible speech. I won't do a Nicholson though. It said, "Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to the man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went your way. Otherwise, it suggests you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to. Did you order the code red? I did the job. I interrupts. Did you order the code red? You're goddamn right I did." It's an incredible, powerful speech. Incredible, like, find the lie. Right? Find the lie. There's no lie in it. Everything that Jessup said is true. We need Marines on the wall. We need Delta. We need we need all of them. We were just talking about pastors that take on this type of persona themselves. We need pastors like that. This is, replace Marine with pastor. This is what they're doing. Like, we need that. That's the truth. That is the truth. And this is where then we drop and disagree, though, with Jessup. But because of his ego, he lost his position, the position we very well need him in. He brought disgrace and then brought disgrace upon the Corps itself. And because he broke the code. He's the one that started the breaking of that code. When he disobeyed an order to end code reds, he put himself over the unit, Corps, God, and country. He was right that we weakened the country that day when we put him, and we endangered lives when they arrested him. They took him off the wall. He was right. We did, because we needed men like him on the wall. But because of character flaw, because he made the decision to disobey an order from his superiors, he's the one, not Santiago, not even the doctor. He's the one that endangered the unit, the Corps, and country. By disobeying, he was removed from the wall, which is the very place where he was supposed to be.
No.
Really, at the end of the day, again, going this, who can't handle the truth? We can't handle the truth as civilians. We can't. Right? That's why the speech from Serenity is so powerful. That's why the speech from Sicario is so powerful. That's why this speech is so powerful. Because we civilians, we can't handle the truth. But you know who else couldn't handle the truth? Jessup. He couldn't handle the truth that his authority is a mediated authority, and that there's a higher authority that he is always accountable to. And it's perfectly summarized by, I am a lawyer and an officer in the United States Navy, and you are under arrest, you son of a bitch. Because that brought it all back in the focus. That was like, wait on a second. Who do you think you are? You are a man under authority. Yes, you have great authority. You have incredible authority. But you yourself are a man under authority. And I'm representing the authority that you are under. This is a biblical concept. Ephesians 6, 5-9 says bondservants. So this is talking about slaves. Everyone knows where slaves are on the totem pole. Everyone knows that, right? Slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling in sincerity of heart, as to Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. There's nothing radical about what Paul just said in first century Judea. Like, there's nothing radical. Everyone knows where slaves are supposed to be. The only difference is Paul saying, hey, instead of focus on serving your master, serve God. That's the only thing that's Paul saying that's radical. What's radical is when he says, verse 9, and you masters, do the same things to them, giving up threatening, knowing that your own master also is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. And that's what Jessup ran right up into. Yeah. Right up into. He wanted, we talked about it earlier, he wanted to tell everyone that he ordered the code read, and he wanted you to say thank you. Yeah. But he ran right into his own master, the United States Navy, and said, no, we show no partiality under the law here. You were a man who broke the chain of command. You are the man who ordered your subordinates. You gave an unlawful order to your subordinates. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, it was Jessup is the one who couldn't handle the truth. And as Christians, we need to thank God that he has revealed the truth to us. And again, there's, he's revealed it through Christ, but in the real life version of this, we need to understand that the world isn't all, cotton candy and rainbows, even with Christ reigning on high. Christ is coming back, and he will show no partiality when he ultimately judges. No. But while we're still on this side of eternity, let's remember those that are on the wall. They're on the wall for our behalf. Some of them are there for good reasons. Some of them are there for bad reasons. But they're on the wall, and they are protecting our way of life actively. And right now, they are doing that. And so it's something as Christians that we can be thankful to the soldiers on the wall, but we can also remind them, ultimately, that, it's one thing to be subservient to the United States Navy, right? But it's another thing that there's a higher authority, the one who's orchestrated all nations, the King of kings and the Lord of all lords. No. He's the one who you owe ultimate responsibility to. And so this perverted loyalty of unit, core, God, then country it's always God. It's always God. And then we can have philosophical debates on which one comes after. But if you don't start with God, then you're going to get it wrong from the beginning. Yeah. And that's the problem that ended up happening with Jessup, and why he lost his command, and why his moral failing is what endangered. It was what endangered the unit, the core, and the country. Yeah,
it was Kiefer Sutherland's character. I think one of these, yes. I got my King James Bible. I was like that. There were several bones thrown, and yet I didn't see any of them actually citing any. They kept claiming that as a guide, or saying "country God," like God's in the list somewhere. It's like, show me anywhere in the film where you actually let that govern. Like, where did you do that? And that we don't see that. We don't specifically see it in anyone, but we almost. The closest we see it there, I think, in some ways, is Dawson and Galloway, and eventually, then, as we see. As Kaffee kind of learns throughout the film, he sort of has this growing conscience that is very similar to what we would want to see in a Christian, standing up for truth, and then, like Dawson at the end, accepting the consequences for his part in it. Like, okay, I'm going to recognize my sin. I'm going to say we have to stand up for the truth, and I have to accept the consequences when that exposes or when something comes and nope, here is sin and consequence as a result. Thankfully, of course, we don't. When it comes to the ultimate and standing before God, we have something more than just that too. We also have Christ, so we don't have to stand under the summary judgment thanks to what he did. But that's not what this movie was about.
No, not in the least. But And let's go ahead and I'm not sure actually. Talking about the going on to our lightning round, but I'll say, James, I didn't put any actual notes down. I know there'd be a lot to. I'm sure there's some things we can receive, reject, and redeem in this section, but I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I was trying to think. I was like, what? The main theme was the pursuit of truth, right? And kind of pursuit of truth and justice, and I would say, yeah, that's absolutely a receive. I'm even redeeming. Honestly, I'm straight up receiving Jessup's speech. I'm just redeeming the character of the person who said it. If Jessup was an upstanding guy, there'd be no need to redeem it.
Reject the man, redeem the speech. That's
exactly.
That.
And so what about, can you think of any particular rejects that maybe someone would watch this and possibly take away as, oh, that's a positive?
There's almost something noble made about Markinson's letter as he dresses himself up and kind of brings himself to his own decision of account for what he's been a part of. And I think we have to reject that. It's just a tragic mishandling of guilt and complicity. And so like his suicide, I could see somebody seeing that as a noble way out, or like he puts on his dress clothes, he writes a letter to the family, and he takes care of the situation himself. It's like, no, I mean that's as biblically, or even I was gonna say biblically, we'd reject that, and for all sorts of other reasons. I think it's even as our culture, it's like we have to make sure we don't let anybody hang on to that as I've been complicit. This would be my course. So that's, and I don't know if the movie really even makes a judgment. It just sort of happens. Yeah. Amidst the sort of moral grayness of so many different characters, I wouldn't want anybody to see that with any sense of honor or nobility. That it's tragic and twisted in that form.
Yeah. No, that's a good corrective. Thank you.
Yeah. Other than that, I think we've covered it, man. Unless, except for all the things people will point out we missed.
Exactly. So, oh, I can't believe you didn't talk about this. Well, you should start a podcast.
That's right.
So, until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly worldview, and remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
Thanks for watching this episode of Popcorn Theology. For more content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to help broaden the conversation. Check out our archive of past episodes at popcorntheology.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, and consider becoming a patron saint by supporting us on Patreon, which lets you interact, influence, and enjoy exclusive bonus content.